Hello, and welcome back to our Harmony-only challenge on Honkai Star Rail. Last episode, we arrived on Jarilo 6, reached Trailblaze level 15, and raised our team to level 30, and was also lucky enough to recruit ourselves a Tingyan. But that's not all. We also beat our second boss of the challenge, Gepard. And finally arrived at the City of Preservation, where little did we know that the personification of suffering was just waiting for us. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. But before we get into it, these videos really do take a lot of time to write, record, and piece together. So if you could leave a like, comment, and consider subscribing, it would really mean the world to us. Thank you for watching and have yourself a lovely day. Getting into the episode, we arrive in town where Gepard gives us a history lesson explaining that the city was built 700 years prior by the first architects, during a war with the Antimatter Legion. And during that same war is when the Eternal Freeze swept across the world without warning, burying the invading Legion and the world in ice and snow, rendering the city that was built under the protection of the Aeon of Preservation Kilpath the last bastion of humanity. After our history lesson, we follow Gepard to Kilpath Fort, who then explains to us who the architects actually are, and tells us about the current Supreme Guardian, Kokoli Rand, who rules over the city. We are then told that Gepard sent a messenger prior to our arrival to the Supreme Guardian, and that she is currently waiting to meet us. Upon arriving in the Supreme Guardian's office, we see our fellow Harmonier Bronya engaged in a debate with the Supreme Guardian, who then tells Bronya to leave so she can talk to us. After a slight pause, Bronya then rather begrudgingly leaves the room. After dismissing Gepard, the Supreme Guardian then welcomes us, and asks us what our intentions are for arriving on Jarilo 6, but is then set on a side tangent when we are surprised that she believes our claims. She then begins stating that the architects knew of life beyond the planet, even though they had not made contact with anyone for the 700 years since the beginning of the Eternal Freeze. After answering our question, the Supreme Guardian then again asks what our motives are for arriving on Jarilo 6. We tell her that we are here to help her and her people by finding and sealing the Stellarin causing the Eternal Freeze. After explaining our motives, the Supreme Guardian then asks us why this calamity should matter to us, and that no one would go out of their way to help a world unless they had something to gain from doing so. It is at this point we decide to come clean and explain that we cannot leave this world until the Stellarin is sealed, as it is preventing us from progressing on our journey. And after getting the official FYI for March, the Supreme Guardian then agrees to assist us in locating the Stellarin, but first arranges for us to rest at the local hotel and have a dispatch of Silvermane guards bring us back in the morning after a good night's rest. But in typical fashion, not all is as it seems.
Of course, I understand. Do not worry. I have a way.
Upon leaving the Supreme Guardian's office, we reunite with Gepard, who has received orders to no longer restrict our movements in the city and even recommends some tourist locations for us to visit, before bidding us a farewell. So what do? Do we visit said landmarks? Oh no. We comb every inch of the city from vendors to vending machines, and buy all the food we possibly can to prepare for what is going to be the hardest battle we may ever encounter during this challenge. With our wallet now well and truly empty, and a surplus of helpful food items held firmly in our pockets, we then proceed to visit the various landmarks around the city, from the majestic Everenter Monument to the local workshop where we meet another of our favorite characters, Serval. who invites us into her workshop and teaches us how to operate and repair the local machinery. After saying farewell to Serval, we return to the Astral Express and meet up with Pom Pom, who acknowledges our hard work and personal growth, and now lets us claim our Trailblaze level rewards. And it's at this point we have to gear up for the upcoming boss fight. So without wasting any time, we head to the Ember Exchange and buy all of the Silvermane badges and Immortal Cyanet in order to level up both Asta and Tinyan Trace levels. And upon returning to Jarilo 6, we head to the hotel, where we hold a group meeting in public, which is always discreet, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, where we discuss the meeting we had with the Supreme Guardian and came to the agreement that something was off during said meeting. As if there was another presence with us during the meeting that the Supreme Guardian was more focused on, and after realizing that it could have well been the Invisible Man, we come to the consensus that we might just be looking too much into it, and agree that it's best if we all go get some rest for the day ahead. But sure enough, we encounter yet another strange occurrence as we turn in for the night.
Who are you? What are you?
We are allies. Allies of the Guardians and generations.
What do you want?
To rebuild its to help you achieve your wish.
The next morning, we are woken up by March and the Dark Knight, who tell us there is a commotion outside. It appears our Silvermane Guard dispatch is here to collect us, but are not too happy to see us. Wondering what happened, we investigate the commotion. Arriving outside, we are met with a Silvermane Guard, who tells us that Bronya is currently waiting downstairs for us, and not to try anything funny. Confused, we meet with Bronya, who puts us under arrest for allegedly planning to incite a rebellion within the city. After trying to dispute the charges, we realized we have been betrayed by the Supreme Guardian, and that March and Dan Heng seem to have been in this particular situation more than once. And with things looking even more dire with every passing second, March comes up with an on-the-spot plan to escape through the nearby Fragmentum and ditch the guards. So not wasting any time, we initiate our big jailbreak.
Have an ice day!
Upon giving Bronya and the rest of the Silvermane Guards the slip for now, we find ourselves in the deeply corroded part of the city, where we sneak by all of the Fragmentum creatures and make our way to the exit, but that is until we hit a bit of a snag. Upon reaching the exit to the Fragmentum, we are cut off by Bronya, who had organized a Silvermane ambush beforehand and orders us to surrender. It is at this point we try to reason with her. However, try as we might, Bronya does not pay attention to our reasoning, instead telling us that she is merely following orders, and that the Supreme Guardian had investigated our backgrounds and labeled us criminals who planned to overthrow the architects. With our situation looking even more dire with every passing second, it is made even worse by March insulting the Supreme Guardian, which only made Bronya even more angry. Thanks, March. With all attempts at a peaceful resolution being met with failure, and Bronya not listening to reason, we are left with no choice but to fight our way out of this mess, and that is when the suffering began. But Biggs, you keep saying there was suffering. How exactly did you suffer? Well, You see, much like the Gepard boss fight, where he had multiple waves of soldiers, Bronya also has 2 waves of Silvermane guards we have to fight through in order to actually get to the boss themselves. But you see, unlike Gepard, Bronya is not only stronger with much more health and damage, she also has a variety of powers that can easily turn the tide of the fight and overpower us, such as buffing ally soldiers' damage considerably and accelerating their turn ahead of ours. But that's not all. You see, Bronya can also summon even more soldiers to the field to cover her weaknesses, making her immune to weakness break, unless we defeat the soldiers protecting her. And if that was not enough, Bronya can also take 2 consecutive turns in a row, which she will use to either damage us or buff up one of her soldiers to damage us, making this fight a relentless battle of endurance and damage. But seeing is believing. Have a look for yourselves.
And now for a montage, where Biggs gets their backside handed to them.
Many fails later, the stars aligned, and finally, we did it! After a grueling few days, and following our instinct to give it one last try, we finally defeat Bronya. But our victory was short-lived as Bronya was showing no sign of backing down. With us cornered, it looked hopeless, that is, until we get help from a very unexpected ally.
Ooh, sorry! I didn't mean to ruin the intensity of the moment.
What is this? I can't breathe.
I have one thing to say. Sampo never lets friends who've helped him come to harm. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say.
They will suffer, sacrifice, and die because of my order.
It is not death which creates them. They will be swept into the infancy of a new world.
What about the Underworlders? They will lose the protection of the Architects. They will see me as a tyrant.
You have witnessed the world we have promised. A temporary misunderstanding for an eternity of prosperity.
We will honor your decision.
I understand.
And that is it for this episode of Harmony Only. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe.